This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. It's been said that if you go to prison as a young man, you come out a hardened criminal. But this was not the case for Demetrius McCrae. He was convicted of armed robbery and went to jail in 1996 for 21 years. And that's where he accomplished more than he ever thought possible and conceived several books, including A Thug is Just a Man. Now, you describe this book as one of hope.
That's what we need in today's urban societies in the ghetto. The kids have as far as the males, a perverted sense of manhood, and they want to be thugs, but don't actually know that thugging is just being a man, just being able to live your life as you, for you, without any restrictions. I was a 17-year-old kid trying to be a part of the crowd and showing my own uniqueness and my own individuality because I wanted to be a part of something. I didn't think I could beat anybody. I didn't think I was anybody without the crowd urging me on, telling me that I was. I needed to learn to appreciate myself. Once I got inside, I just told myself one day, it got to be more to life than what I'm doing, and started doing a lot of studying and soul searching and became enlightened at the things I discovered about myself and people as a whole, that nobody is the same, so there's no need for everybody to try to be like somebody. Embrace your uniqueness and find out what you got to offer the world.
Did your family know what was going on?
Yeah, and they tried to talk me onto a better path, but, as a youngster, you think the people telling you to do better and be better are just trying to take all your fun away because you think what you're doing is fun when it's actually stupid, but you only learn that in hindsight. It's basically, I didn't listen to my own inner voice. I listened to everybody else. You think because you live in the ghetto that you got to have money all the time and, everybody telling me to get a job or go to school. But I want to be in the streets hustling and robbing and doing dumb stuff. So I, try to tell today's youth that, all of that ain't necessary. All of that ain't even something that you really want to do. It's just you feel like that's what people will glorify you for or give you props for because you want everybody to look at you like you somebody.
It's got to be hard to make that leap.
It is. It is.
So how old were you when you went to jail?
17. I kind of view it as necessary because I want to learn the things I need to know to be a positive and productive man that I've come to be.
So you came out of prison a better man than when you went in?
A whole lot better. I got my GED. I got a trade, electrician, but my focus is on my books because I wrote a couple books.
While you were inside?
Yes, ma'am. And my focus is on getting my books out to the people who I feel need them because it got to be something to reverse this trend of going to prison like it's cool because it's not cool.
Did you see a lot of young guys like yourself in prison?
Yes, ma'am. Over the years, they came in droves. Every year, more and more younger people were coming inside, and it was heartbreaking to see.
What is it? Is it a breakdown of the family, society? What is it?
I think society, because the family structure, where I'm from anyway, is always usually one woman raising however many kids she got, because all the men, they teach us the culture of selling drugs and robbing and being a thug, but the women, they get stuck raising the kids by themselves, and you turn to the people in the street, the older dudes in the street for father figures, and they ain't teaching you nothing productive.
Are you going out and talking to kids?
When I get opportunity, we have little community centers. I go out there and talk to some of the kids and engage in sports activities and something with them. Just something to keep them out of the street.
Do you think that's another part of the problem? There's just not enough things for them to do?
They got plenty to do, but ain't nobody teaching them no better.
Man, you could make a real difference right where you are.
And I'm trying. That's what I've dedicated the rest of my life to, trying to make a difference in somebody else.
Writing was a major part of most of Contessa's professional life, working in human resources at a large international company. Then she really spread her creative wings and started writing screenplays, and now she's published her first book entitled Inamorata. So people were telling you you've had so many great experiences. You have to write a book.
But when you're talking about fortunate experiences, I consider a lot of my fortunate experiences what others would consider unfortunate experiences. And that's one of the basic principles of Inamorata. It's a depiction of my journey and many of my life lessons that were learned through unfortunate relationships. The premise is taking unfortunate experiences, analyzing them, what did I learn here, and taking those experiences, channeling them into fortunate redirections, positive redirections, is an opportunity for you to learn from your mistakes, owning your situation, and moving on positively once you've done that. First and foremost, you and you alone are responsible for the happiness and success of your own life. Life throws us curves. You need to learn to adapt, make necessary changes, to know that mistakes are part of all of our lives, just as hardships are, and we need to embrace them both as learning tools. Don't be a finger pointer or play the blame game. Own your situation and your part in it. And another thing I like to communicate is to never, ever harbor anger or animosity. The best revenge is your own success. And also that you can't appreciate success in life if you've never experienced hardship. And realizing your dreams, whatever they may be, will be all the more fulfilling after you've fallen down a few times and learned how to pick yourself up and move on. Inamorata is my journey, starting from very, very poor beginnings. I had no education. I was married very young, was a mother very young, divorced very young, finding myself at 19 years old in need of obtaining a divorce with no skills, no job, no money, and where do I go from here? And that's where we begin, and then the rest of the book just follows my journey through life. It's through my own mistakes how I learned to just grab a hold of what I wanted to have in life. And the Barnes & Noble stores, they treat their authors wonderfully. I just did a book signing. They had an author event at our local store for, there was over 20 authors there. And I mean, it's a great community experience. It's wonderful to meet other authors, and I've been to all throughout Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois, and they just really go way, way, way out of their way.
Well, you know what? That's really great to hear, Contessa, but I can tell you it depends on where you are. Not all of our authors have been as fortunate to have the experience with bookstores that you have. Thank you. Vanessa Faison is a retired dental hygienist and collegiate clinical instructor in Atlanta, which explains her book entitled Hattie Gets a Smile. She wrote it after working as a community volunteer where she realized there was a real need for her book.
It was needed to address the early education for good dental habits, to prevent dental disease, and of course to address bad dental experiences, these children's fear of going to the dental office. For many years, the Centers for Disease Control said that one of the most chronic childhood diseases in the U.S. is cavities, and that cavities and infection lead to children having problems in eating, speaking, playing, and most importantly, learning. And that's why I wrote Hattie Gets a Smile. It's actually an educational tool, and the main character is the little girl who is scared to visit the dental office in Sunnytown. And why is it named Sunnytown? Because everybody smiled in that town, but only the adults would go to the dental office. So Hattie was on a mission to get a great big smile like the adults and to show her classmates how brave she was. So the main idea of the book was to give the reader or the children a play-by-play experience of what to expect when they go to the dental office, and to allow the reader to become a part of Hattie's experience. The children get to walk with Hattie on her quest to show that she is not afraid, and to be the first kid in the town to visit the dental office. After, the reader gets to cheer, to celebrate with Hattie and her classmates. And the children understand you do not have to fear going to the dentist.
Yay!
So I think it's a great experience and a great opportunity for parents and caregivers to bond while teaching them a great important message about good dental health, and it will prevent children from becoming at risk for adult diseases. And that is most important.
Is this book in every dental office you ever worked in?
That is the goal, yes. I actually visited all the dentists that I worked with, and they were very excited, and I gave them some copies of the book, and they read it, and they are helping me to promote it. I'm actually planning a book signing at my local church. Also, I try to keep abreast of the local and national book fairs to attend. I'm contacting local libraries to carry the book. So I guess you would say I'm really out there, foot in hand, trying to promote the book. But I also hope to solicit the support and promotion from the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry through an online campaign. So I'm looking for great things for this book to be in the hands of kids all over the world so that we will continue the campaign against dental diseases in children.
You are awesome, man.
You have to have a passion for it. And I had a passion for it in my practice and serving in the community and the things that I saw and the experiences that kids endured, because their first dental experience is important, and it sets the stage for how they feel about the dental office, the dentist, and the hygienist for the rest of their lives.
Man, I can feel your enthusiasm right through the phone. Vanessa, thank you. Paula Fredricks is a database engineer in Kansas. She started writing 6 years ago when she went on a study abroad trip to Ireland as a student at Iowa State University. The name of her book? Falling.
There's this little island with a Carrick-a-Rede. It's called the Carrick-a-Rede Rope Bridge. It leads out onto an island, and my friend and I spent a couple of hours there on one of our free days, and it was beautiful. So I've always been interested in dragons, and so like while I was there, I was just like, man, it would be really cool if like this would be a really cool setting for a dragon to just fly by at any moment.
So what's your book about?
My book has 3 main characters. I guess you could say the main character is a girl named Rain, and she is also on a study abroad trip in college, and she falls off the bridge going to the other side, and then the dragon, who is one of the other main characters, he saves her, and then turns out that she was already connected to this like magically protected island full of dragons and fairies, and that connection leads to the 3rd main character, who's an assassin trying to kill her because of her pre-existing connections to the island.
She didn't even know she had them.
Didn't even know she had them.
Ah, so we find out what those connections are.
Absolutely. It's got a little bit of a cliffhanger to it, and I'm already working on the 2nd book, which I hope the 2nd book will be the final part of the story, but I haven't decided yet. So I work right next to our marketing team at the company that I work for, and I've got some friends over there who's got some ideas that I think he's going to help me out. So
it's going to help you get that book out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got Barnes and Noble. I think most of the traffic that I've gotten has been through Amazon, and then I know my grandma donated a couple of copies to her library in Iowa. My hope for this book is just to connect with people and to hopefully make a difference for somebody. I mean, I hope somebody really, really likes it.
And just enjoys it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of always been the thing for me, is just, it's a way to connect to people outside of myself. I've always been very story driven, and stories are a big part of my life, but it's also made me pretty introverted. And so, having a book and having a story out there that other people like is just a way to connect to people that I don't know, yet.
Excellent, Paula. Keep it up. It is break time on the Page Publishing Book Club. Stay with us.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Diane King is an emergency nurse in California. She's been writing since her husband died suddenly of cardiac disease in 2017. He was just 60 years old. She started journaling and found it extremely helpful in helping her to gather her thoughts and get on with her life.
So he passed away. A girlfriend came over and said, you might want to consider journaling. Here's a journal. And I had never journaled before. And so I just started writing down my thoughts, of my way of speaking to him and showing gratitude and thanking him for the time that we did have together. So when I wrote the book, I extracted the data from that. We were married 15, we were together 24. Basically, there's 25 chapters, and each chapter talks about our life together, the fun times that we had, and some of it was funny. And just, we were very synergistic. 1 + 1 = 3. So together, we worked very well together, and we were both independent of each other, but together, we always felt like we were very dynamic. At the end of each chapter, I gave it a nurse's twist on it, like what may help somebody else that is going through the grieving process, because we're not all given a manual. What do you do when someone dies? And it tells you things that might help you get through the situation. For example, for holidays, what was their favorite meal? Would you consider making that in their honor for the holiday? Because it's difficult to get through once someone passes away. And it's not just for someone that loses a spouse from sudden death. It's losing a spouse, a parent, a child. It's coping mechanisms. The quality of time that we had together, we had a good relationship. A lot of people are married, but they're just married. They're not, truly in love. They're together because they have to be. It's part love story, day-to-day routines of each other's lives. We helped each other in our business. I did legal nurse consulting for him. He helped me write papers for my job because he was very articulate, with his writing skills.
Well, the name of your book is You've Got This.
Yeah. It means that it was a struggle. Every day is a struggle when you're used to having your partner with you and all of a sudden you don't. And so waking up, I never had a day that I couldn't get out of bed. I just kept thinking to myself, you've got this. One foot in front of another, keep moving. You've got to plow through this. I felt better after I wrote the book, just remembering how lucky I was to have this relationship.
Are you talking about grief or loss?
I am. I did a book signing in our town, and a lot of people came because it had gotten out in the local newspaper.
How about grief groups?
I never went to a grief group.
You didn't?
I never once attended one. I just worked through it myself, and I'm still working on it. It's still a challenge.
All right, Diane. Thank you for sharing your story. Brenda Ross is getting her doctorate at the University of Houston, and she's an academic coach. She likes to keep busy, and over 20 years, she wrote Life After Love. Once she confronted the fact that she was a victim of domestic violence and didn't even realize it.
I knew things wasn't supposed to be like that. I mean, I loved him with all my heart, and I tried hard to be a good wife, and it just wasn't working. I knew at the beginning he smoked marijuana, but didn't really understand that he drank like he did until I was really into the relationship with him. And I didn't understand about domestic violence. It just got, worse over time. And the reason that I wrote the book was cathartic. And I also wanted to share with other people in domestic violence relationships all the dynamics and factors involved. And people always say, why don't you leave? Those words are not helpful. It's just so much more involved when you're in that relationship. I had kids from my first marriage, and I kind of came from a family a little bit dysfunctional, so I guess I really didn't have a good understanding of relationships. My second husband, I met him at my job, and I truly did love him, and I believe that he really did love me, but he came from a domestic violence family, and I thought, oh, if I love him enough, he'll be okay, that he'll want better. But then I realized that people play the tapes that they come with. And unless they decide on their own to do something about things, that's who they are. And if somebody shows you who they are, you really should believe them. You know, I always thought that domestic violence was somebody pounding on you, hitting you. I learned there's verbal and there's mental and emotional. And he calls me all kinds of names, pull my hair, spit in my face, and he didn't come home, and he messed around with other women, and I still didn't equate it with domestic violence. You know, we stay in a relationship because of the kids, but it's really because of the kids we need to get out of it, because we're just teaching kids that it's okay to live like that, and it's not. But I had to decide if I loved him more than I loved myself and my kids, and the answer was no. And he died. He overdosed. And I just want people to know you can rise above it, but you have to work at it. You have to make yourself available to counseling. You have to tell somebody. You have to take the bull by the horns, and it's not easy. It's dangerous when you're getting ready to leave a relationship. It's when they kill you. But they kill you when you stay there. The university is doing a book signing, and what I want to do is go to individual shelters and answer questions and talk about abuse, domestic violence. It's a love story, it's a scary story, and it's a cautionary tale all at one time.
All right, Brenda, thank you so much. Lawrence E. Walker has a production company in Somerset, New Jersey. His book, Sweet Georgia Brown, Impact, Courage, Sacrifice, and Will, was inspired by an HBO documentary on the Tuskegee Airmen. He set out to do another documentary on the airmen when a forgotten group of women of that time was brought to his attention.
So this historian in Morristown, New Jersey, contacted me. And little did I knew his father was Captain Terry. He was a Tuskegee Airman. And as he was telling me the story, he said, listen, you don't need to work on your next documentary of the Tuskegee Airmen. And, you know, HBO already did it. Why don't you do the story on those black women that served during World War II? And he gave me the history behind that. Their history was lost in time. So he gave me these two books to look up. Brenda L. Moore, she wrote the book titled To Serve My Country, To Serve My Race, where she focused on the 6888, which was Major Charity Adams Early's regiment. And Major Adams was the first African-American major that served during World War II. She was a female major. She had a regiment of 855 women, but they were all black. She interviewed over 1,000 women about that experience serving with the armed forces. And then I realized, wow, these were some incredible stories. These people are up in age, and they're not going to be around too long. The book is about Major Charity Adams Early and her regiment and all the women. I interviewed about 36 women, and out of the 36, the first 100 pages focuses on their history and what they did. And then I took about a good 24 interviews and put them in the book. So I felt the person reading needed to get the experience of what those women have went through during that particular time, because I knew once they die, all that history is gone. So all I'm doing is keeping that history alive. These women are dead now. When I interviewed them in the 90s, and they were probably in their 70s and some 80s. Do believe somebody told me just before Barack Obama left the office, he found out about Charity Adams, and she was already had passed away. But it was one woman they found. She was 100, and she was a part of that regiment. So he invited her to Washington. I did the documentary already. Now let me focus on the book, and that wasn't hard to do. You know, I had the data, and I just put together the book, and I had the interviews, and I felt give the readers two books in one.
What a great piece of women's history, Lawrence. Thank you. Finally, Scott Ron is a commercial banker in Rock Island, Illinois on the Mississippi River. He wrote the original manuscript for his book entitled The Book of It 18 years ago and finally finished it.
The urge a couple of years ago to take the time and turn it into a book. There's things I wrote about in it that were speculation when I wrote it back about 2000 that no longer were speculation. They were happening in the real world.
Like what?
Climate warming, things going on in politics, based on the fact that across history, humans tend to repeat themselves.
Right.
Mark Twain once said, history might not repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes.
Well, I mean, it's called The Book of It. What's the essence of this book?
Something had started out, me and 3 friends who have since passed away, but we were looking for something particular, that particular being signs there was a civilization before ours. And we came across this strand that passes through history and back. And we didn't have a name for it, so we just nicknamed it It. That became its real name. Each chapter is its own story on its own, but all of them together compose an entire book.
Okay. Example.
Each chapter's kind of about something totally different, a person going through their own thoughts. It's different aspects of myself and at different times and what I've done. And in the beginning, it's autobiographical. Then it moves on to describing things discovered, the thing I call it itself as a road, different things that we saw across history. And then it goes into different things in science that were talked about in the ancient world and different philosophies, and settles across a field of a person from outside this culture, what he'd see in our culture, which is very flattering. I told my niece it's not a unicorns and rainbows story. This is what was intended for humanity back then. This is what happened, and this is the path at the end, the path you kind of have to take if you're going to get back on track. Individually, you have to choose on your own, one way or another. I mean, that's the whole aspect of it. It's the basis of what's called free will. You have to be able to decide on your own what you are and are not going to do, how you're going to do it, the reasons you're going to do it, and you have to understand things like doing nothing is still doing something because you're just allowing things to go on as they were. It's the same form they used in Greece in the beginning, using narratives to bring up certain points because it's much more interesting to the reader. If you read it and then come back later and read it again, you're going to find you learned enough reading through it the first time that you're going to see different things, meaning different things throughout the book. But I also encourage people not to take my word for things, to go out and find out for themselves, do their own research.
All right, Scott, thank you so much. That's a wrap for this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.